I've been in media for a long time. Nauna ka lang sa akin. A few years. Hindi, kasi tanda pa kita sa Collegian eh. Sa Collegian ka pa unang...
Mas matanda ba ako sa'yo?
Oo. Kasi tumatakbo ako...
Hindi ako kasing tanda ni Jigo.
Alayan na.
I will get to that later. Hindi, pero... So, I'm happy with my career. I've been a reporter, journalist. I've been to different provinces, I've done newspaper, print, digital. Pero, when I look back, tapos iniisip ko, ano ba yung stereotype ko ng journalist before I became a journalist? Di ba? Sa totoo lang, and this is why I wanted to talk to you guys. Because sa totoo lang, when I look back, the romantic image I had of what a journalist is, I now know, is in fact a photojournalist. Diba? Yun naintindihan ko yung sinasabi ko. Yung romantic image ko na sasabak, puro action, diba? Diba? O, may danger, diba? May ganyan. I now realize I now think the closest image I have to that is you guys.
Photojournalist.
Diba? Not reporters, definitely not an editor. Diba? So, what I want to ask you, June, only because tayo magkadya. What did I miss? What did I miss in all these decades and not being a full-time photojournalist?
You mean,
Ako.
instead of you being a photojournalist?
Instead of me being a journalist,
now that it's your romantic notion.
Now that I realize na actually, but what did I really miss? I mean, kung saan man nag-diverge yung career natin at ikaw naging batikan na photojournalist, I've done other things. I'm happy. I think we're both happy being in media. But what did I miss from your life?
I think we both started with the same notion. That's also why I got into photojournalism. The romantic notion of being called anywhere or somewhere and then just going to that place and doing the story. My journalism career started by browsing the old National Geographic magazines. Remember sa Vincent Sol, sa baba nun may book sale na And when I was starting as a photojournalist, I'd go there, browse the magazines. So I had the romantic notions that being a photojournalist probably would take me to places.
Photojournalist ang inisip mo? Photographer more generically or?
Photojournalist. Precisely because of National Geographic. I wanted to roam around the world. Discover exotic places, taking photographs, telling their story.
Pero ikaw, kapatid mo si Nico, di ba? Another really good photographer. Magkasama kami for a number of years sa Today. Di ba? Pamilya nyo ba? I mean, we'll get to other, pero bukod sa inyong dalawa, meron ba kayong mga ninuno na photographer din?
It's good that you asked. No, it was our generation. Both my brothers are photographers, although to different extents. So our eldest probably got into it mostly as a hobby, taking photographs of concerts, ganun, events. Hindi siya talaga professional. Nico, on the other hand, he's the extreme. He really went to the very essence of photography. Right now, he's doing, you know what photography is doing? He's doing glass plate photography. With 8x10 cameras. Glass plate, you make your own negatives.
Umatras ka ng konti, daguerreotype ka na.
It's even older. Yung glass plate, ikaw ang gagawa ng negatives mo. I am somewhere in between. Siguro ako yung nag-career. Si Nico kasi artist level na siguro yung ganun. Yung ikaw gagawa ng negative mo. Ako yung somewhere in between who made it as a profession. So, yun. Tinuloy ko lang yung ginagawa ko while getting the jobs that would pay me.
Tapos nagkataon lang na pareho kayong pumasok dyan. I mean, ikaw na-inspire ka ng National Geographic. I know you were a photographer for Philippine Collegian na at that time. Pero si Nico, I mean, I just want to know kung bakit parang nananalaytay sa pamilya niya.
Precisely because someone started it siguro, tapos it was always there. Parang musicians, di ba? When all the instruments are there in the house, you somehow acquire. Ito nga, acquire na siguro. Ganun din. Talking about family, parang
Pero ay babalik ko sa tanong ko. So, what did I miss? I mean, kung titingnan mo yung tayong dalawa, parang more or less we started 90s, 'di ba? Sa media, sa dyaryo, 'di ba? I became a reporter, editor, and so on and so forth. Now I'm dabbling in broadcasting, newsroom management, and so on. Anong na-miss namin ng mga hindi naging photojournalist?
Maybe you started being wise. Because you won't get anywhere as a photojournalist.
Hindi naman.
Hindi naman.
It's probably, no doubt, a tough and challenging job nga. Pero probably yung exciting and
Most fulfilling.
is you get to, sabi nyo nga kanina, you get to go to different places, meet new people, diba? And that's what I thought kasi before I was not into photography or photojournalism naman eh. Pero as I was growing up, I was seeing the works of my father, yung works nila Nico, and the works of their colleagues. So that's what yun yung nag-inspire sa akin. Uy, gusto ko rin makapag-cover ng ganito, makapunta sa mga ganitong lugar. So, ayun, doon nag-start.
Ikaw, AC?
Ako actually, nung bata ko, ang sabi ng lola ko, ay naku, ang dal mo. Doon ka na nga lang, mag-broadcast, sabi ng lola ko noon. Nako, sabi ko noon, di ko naman alam kung ano yun. Pero, mahilig kasi ako magkwento, kahit na anong paraan, na makwento talaga ako. So, I decided nung ng college, sabi ng lola ko, mag-masscom daw. Sige, mag-masscom tayo, walang math dun. Pero galing kasi ako sa family of engineers. So, ako lang yung hindi nakakuha nung part na yon. Pero, so, nung time na yon, nung masscom ako sa Adamson, parang, mas into videography ako talaga nun. Tapos, mas hilig ko magsulat ng scripts for TV shows, for mga ganong klaseng yung stories na gusto ko. Pero, nung nakalabas na ako ng college, doon ko na-realize na mas maganda yata magkwento ng talagang nangyayari sa paligid kesa yung make-believe ng mga stories. So, my first job kasi, nauwi kagad ako sa NGO, sa isang environmental NGO. So, parang ang big deal sa org na yun ng litrato. So, sabi ko, yung power ng images, every time that we took photos of the community, we show these photos to every time we lobby for any laws. Sabi ko, may power yung photography, yung photos, kasi napapahinto mo yung mga kongresista, yung mga senador, nakukwento mo, ano ba yung kwento sa mga litratong ito? So sabi ko, okay, ito yung gusto kong way ng pagkukwento na. So magmula nun, parang sabi ko, I can use photography to bear witness onto something that is more important. So parang from then, parang medyo bata pa mga 2007, nagdire-diretso na ako hanggang ngayon.
Si AC Di Matatak po, photographer ng Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities. Nag-freelance din yan sa mga dyaryo before. Si June Sepe, OG.
I want to inject that.
Teka muna, iyan ko lang muna. Si June Sepe, matagal na tong photographer, batika na reporter, then eventually was with ABS-CBN, nag-wires din niya sa Associated Press. We've crossed paths many times also, nag-dyaryo rin yan. And si Eli, I think you got the hint. Eli is a Sepe as well, and anak ni June, and Eli is a freelance photographer and multi-awarded like June, and kung saan-saan na rin po lumalabas sa mga litrato niyan.
I was gonna say nga, parang naging family affair to kasi, of course, Eli obviously is my son. Pero si AC, I saw her grow up with photography. Bata pa siya talaga. She started with one of our workshops, ganun. Tapos, even her thesis, ako yung in-interview na for her thesis. So, now she's teaching photography also. So, parang, pamilya ko na rin to. So, this is a family affair.
Kapag tinatanong ko, sino yung nag-inspire sa'yo na maging photojournalist? O sino yung mga naging mentor mo? Lagi ko sinasabi, naku, madami sila. Lahat ata nung nasa PCP.
Kaya magbanggit ka ng ilan?
Well, yeah.
Shout out dyan.
Isa si Sir Jun Don, si Sir Jimmy, si Sir Alex Baluyot.
Jimmy Domingo, Alex
So,
Baluyot.
lahat yun, masasabi kong mentor ko. Na lahat ng mga nakasama ko sa field. Kasi nung nasa Greenpeace ako noon, lagi ko sumasama sa kanila. Tapos parang natutunan ko, yung mas na-hone ko yung knowledge ko sa photography sa pagsama sa kanila. Yung parang, kaya masasabi ko, lahat sila mentor ko kasi iba't iba yung pamamaraan ng pagtuturo nila.
Yeah.
Tapos lahat yun, na-imbibe ko. At the same time, nakagawa din ako ng sarili kong pamamaraan.
Bagbanggit yan, I mean, obviously, you were all inspired by something or someone. Pero, nag-umpisa ka na magtrabaho, and I think it's safe to say, nag-umpisa kayong magutom no nag-umpisa kayong magtrabaho. But, tell me a moment na you were in a coverage, or you took a picture, or you saw something that you did, na biglang epiphany for you na, this is it.
Ito na talaga.
I like this job.
Well, ako kasi, in my case, I started my photojournalism work mainly when I joined the Varsitarian
The
sa UST. That I was in my second year. So, I was able to cover a lot of events, mostly student-related issues. And one of the events I was able to cover or witness was the PayPal visit. So that was in 2015. So it was parang ano sa akin yun. You were part of you were part of history na uy, nandyan si Pope. Makikita mo siya for the first time. And at the same time, you're working for the official newspaper of UST. So when I was covering him, pumunta kasi siya sa UST nung siguro nung mga his fourth day ba yun. I was able to take a picture of him looking at my camera. So sabi ko, uy, parang blessing. Parang para sa iyo yan, para sa iyo talaga.
Bigyan kita ng isang scoop. Ikaw, Jun, sa tinagal-tagal ng I mean, do you remember one of the earlier moments that validated for you this career choice?
It's good that you use the word validation. Kasi, nung college, tuloy natin yung kwento. For me, it was something to support me through college. Kasi I was working with the Collegian. That's where I learned the ropes. Pero, I really started getting serious in photography nung pumasok ako sa Jorn. And during my graduating year, I proposed it as a thesis. During that time, all the theses were written. Book, magazine, papers. So I tried proposing kasi they opened the creative thesis parang program. So I proposed a photography exhibit as a thesis. Tinanggap.
Sa Mascom to, hindi
Sa
to
Mascom
hindi to fine arts.
Hindi sa fine arts. So, tinanggap. So that really got me serious into photography kasi I realized, diba, I can tell a story while doing the thesis and eventually finishing it through an exhibit, my first exhibit. I realized na I can tell a story through photographs.
Ano yung tema ng thesis mo?
Ito yung caravan. Yung mga nagro-roam around the streets selling basket pulled by ox, yung mga big cows, buffaloes. So when I did that thesis, I went with the caravan for 2 months on the road from Manila to Batangas, Laguna. Actually, I mounted a one-man exhibit. That really got me thinking na I can tell stories through photographs, di ba? I want to clarify yung sinabi ko kanina. There's no future in photojournalism. I was being sarcastic, of course. Kasi it's harder for us. Maybe it's partly my lament also that I always have to constantly prove that photography is a language similar to text, similar to video. I always have to prove that. So the positions I got into, that's through hard work, proving myself that you listen to me. I became one of the first photo editors, di ba? In a major publication. Through hard work, proving myself that you should listen to photography.
That said, and kina-qualify niya, hindi naman ganun katotoo na walang pera. Pero gusto ko pa rin illustrate mo kung gaano kahirap ang pera. When I was a reporter, so mag-umpisa ako stringer. Di ba? I don't even remember. But I don't think I'm making this up. It was something like 1 peso, 150 per column inch. Di ba? Magkano bayad sa photo nung panahon mo? Nung nag-umpisa ka sa dyaryo? Sa isang
50 per photo siguro. Ganun.
Na-published.
Oo.
Di ba?
Oo.
So kung hindi ka ma-publish, wala.
Wala kung freelance ka. Wala. You work per picture. Di ba? Yung mga midweek noon, Manila Times, that's where I first contributed. Yun, 50
pesos.
75, 100, malaki na. And even the starting salaries. Photographers always have a lower scale than reporters or writers, di ba? So, it was a constant struggle nga to prove yourself that we're also storytellers, just like the one who writes text. But we use photos instead, but we're also storytellers.
I think it's true for any newsroom na when the reporters come back to base and do the story, tapos na-file ko na, di ba? Nag-aantay na lang ako tawagin ng editor. Tambay muna ako. The cool place to tambay was with the photographers.
Yeah.
Di ba? Parang doon ka. So ako, I'll be back there with Manny Guluyugo, Bernard Testa, our old friend Dennis Sabangan, di ba? Sila Roy Cobilla, di ba? And it was just yung talking shop, kahit na wala naman ako sa level nila sa But for you, what were those moments that made you feel like, okay, I have power here?
Siguro sa akin yung moment ng I was able to join my first ship tour in Greenpeace from Manila to Iloilo around 2008. Kasi yung photography kasi nag-start talaga siya for development issues agad.
Yeah.
So, bago ako nag-media. So, baliktad yung sa akin. So, from then, parang ang naatasang trabaho sa akin is to document daily life nung crew, nung Rainbow Warrior 2 pa yon nung time na yon. So, parang, okay, document ko yung buhay nila everyday hanggang sa makarating kami ng Iloilo. And then, isa sa mga part lagi ng Greenpeace kapag mag-port call siya, meron siyang open boat. So during that open boat, kasi syempre, nagtutour kami ng mga locals na sa boat. Tapos there's a kid. Kasi I always held my camera. Tinitake photos ko yung mga bumibisita, yung mga nangyayari sa boat. There's a little girl, sabi niya, na kinukulit niya ako. Tapos sabi niya sa akin, anong ginagawa mo? Ay, sabi ko, nagpipicture. Gusto mo picturean kita? Picture siya doon sa may dolphin. Sabi niya, tapos tinawag niya yung nanay niya. Sabi ko, naku, may nagawa ba ako? Hindi ko naman kinidnap to, diba? So, tinawag niya yung nanay niya. Tapos pagdating ng nanay niya, sabi niya, Nay, ganito yung gagawin ko pag tanda ko. Right there and then, naiyak ako. Sabi ko, sorry po, umiiyak na ako. Sabi ko, pwede pala itong maging trabaho. Oh my God. Kasi hindi siya yung main task ko sa Greenpeace. So, parang, noong time na yun, natasan ako to do that. So, parang sabi ko,
kailangan natin na magpipicture. Pwede ba? Ikaw kumuha ng
So, parang, shucks, pwede pala talaga siyang maging trabaho. So, from then, parang, yun nga, lagi akong sumasama. Tapos ginagawa ko noon, every Saturday, nagsushoot ako sa labas. Yung doon ko na-experience yung sumakay ng trolley, yung sa Poresa. Tapos parang ginagawa ko noon kasi sabi nila, walang formula sa photography, hindi yan wala. Kasi, ay naku, wala daw formula. Sige, paano yung anak ko madilim? Naku, masyado maliwanag. So, ang ginawa ko noon, may maliit akong notebook, nililista ko yung settings. Tapos, sasama ulit ako kapag mga rally na. Naku, mali pa rin lahat. Tapos, hindi ko maalala kung sino nagsabi sa akin, photographer nun, sabi niya, hindi nga kasi ganyan. Dapat nararamdaman. Hindi ko pa nagigets. Ano yung nararamdaman? Nagkakabulan na tayo. Anong nararamdaman? Anong setting? Nagkakabulan na tayo. Wait lang. Sabi, hindi. Basta, practice ka lang na practice. So, from then, every weekend yun, for a few months, yun ang ginagawa ko lang. Hanggang sa, okay. Medyo naging best friend na kami ng camera ko. So, sa mga next kong sama-sama, hindi na ako nahihiya. Sa mga ulingan, medyo, sabi ko, tama na yung setting yun. Niyayabang ko na yung kala Vincent. Sabi niya, oo, okay na yan. Huwag mo pakita dito. Baka manakaw yung camera mo.
Ay, dalawa yung nabanggit niya. Nararamdaman at saka, sabi mo nga, nakita ko may power pala dito. Bakit? Bakit may power ang picture? Especially relative to that one thing I wanna ask is, I think I understand yung power relative to text, di ba? But now you have video. Video is even more complete, di ba? Parang it's moving, you could see but the still picture, bakit may power yun?
I always, every time I do talks or I speak to students who want to be a photographer or photojournalist, I always tell them na there are, in art, there are aspects. And one of the aspects is, yung emotion na pinapakita nito sa audience. And I think yun yung isa sa mga pinaka-importanting element ng photography, na it holds time, or I mean it pauses time, and at the same time it pinaparamdam mo yung gusto mong sabihin dun sa mga nakakakita ng picture mo.
Is it the same emotion, you think? Yung intention mo at saka what they feel, is it necessarily the same?
May nakikita ka ng underlying na theme or thing that's what they mentioned. Yung sa experience niya sa Greenpeace, yung experience niya sa kay Pope, yung being there in the front lines, yung sinabi mo rin bakit magandang kakwentuhan sila Dennis, sila Bernard, kasi nga nandun kami sa front lines, we witness everything. Of course, writers are there, also reporters, but then you go to your task of writing, kami, we stay behind. You have to be there to capture the actual events, di ba? Na nangyayari. Which is, and then you freeze it, and unlike video, you can see that things happen. But with photography, you have to freeze that in one frame to tell the exact epitome of that event. Di ba? And yun, pag na-freeze mo yun, yun yung power ng photography. Kaya nga, I said, nagsistay behind kami. Tignan mo tong drug war. People won't know about what the drug war was if it weren't for the photographs of the drug war. Kasi we stayed behind. Reporters, they covered it, wrote about it, reported it through radio, TV. But us, we had no choice but to stay behind and look for that photograph that will tell you that story, that this is what's happening.
Ikaw, Eli, bata-bata mo pa. How old are you, if you don't mind?
27.
You're 27. So, you take away the 1 year of President Marcos, the 6 years of President Duterte, that places you at 20 years old. Diba? And you were covering really one of the bloodiest times of our history.
He was in college.
I
was still in college. That was in 2016. I was
imagine us as a parent.
in my third year in college. So, I also, at the same time, I was working for the Varsitarian. I was already preparing for my thesis. In fact, my thesis was about the drug war. So, I started covering it noong 2016 nga, and one of my first crime scene was actually the one that was that became viral on the picture on Enquirer, the front page picture that was taken by Rafi Lerma.
So that was same scene.
We were there were a lot of photographers or photojournalists during that time, and from that moment on, I decided to continue shooting the issue kasi I wanted to tell the story or what's happening on the ground, not only to Filipinos but specifically to people like me with the same, yung mga batang, mga katulad ko, mga estudyante na malaman nila kung ano yung nangyayari
Yeah.
sa labas ng campus.
I think everybody listening in understands and actually can picture, okay, alam ko yung eksenang yan. But on that particular chapter, no, of the entire drug war, tell us some scenes that people wouldn't believe if you did not see it for yourselves. I mean, what were some scenes that for you was really surreal, if not talagang unbelievable to you?
There were a lot actually na because every night you see blood, you hear a lot of people crying, weeping. So it was not only physically tiring, it was also emotionally tiring. Kasi every day you get to see those kinds of scenes. And there was a point na I was covering a funeral, then I had to go far from the scene kasi I started to cry. Kasi ako emotional akong tao, so medyo nasobrahan ako nung time na yon na ang dami ko nang nakita or narinig. So siguro it's time to take a break or something like that.
And you did. You took.
Yeah, I took I backed off from that scene and I stopped shooting. And I think my father also witnessed
let me jump to June because you've seen a lot also in your life. Pero
not only the drug war.
iba yung may Duterte, di ba? I mean, would you agree with that statement? Parang iba yung anim na taon.
Dating.
There was a brutality about it. Tapos, even ako, nung nag-cover ako ng drug war, I had 30 years of experience na, di ba? But it was really the first time that, sinasabi ko nga sa kanila, ito talaga yung bowels of, Metro Manila. We really went to the innards ng Metro Manila and we saw how people live. And siguro, kaya rin ganun ang trato sa kanila.
What do you mean?
Life was cheap.
What do you mean? I mean,
Because the way they lived, it was really dirt poor. So, if living can be as cheap as that, siguro kaya rin ganun yung trato.
As
Life
cheap,
was cheap, it can be...
As cheap as what? I mean, without showing me a picture, show me a picture. What do you
They
mean?
were treated like garbage, like animals.
Because they were living like that. Talagang, I don't know how to explain except in pictures, the dirt poor, yung basura, the way they also live, yung mga individuals na pinatay. Kasi, practically, disposable na sila. So they were living like that. Even for me, with 30 years experience na, I never really covered that deep dun sa mga ganong communities na grabe talaga yung
I think
cheap ng buhay sa Pilipinas.
Yung experience ko na gano'n na medyo yung hindi ka makagalaw kasi hindi mo alam kung anong unahin mo. Magpipicture ka ba? Tutulong ka? Tatawag ka ng tulong. Siguro for me is when I cover Yolanda. During that time, yun yung first year ko as a freelance. Wala na ako sa Greenpeace noon. So I just decided to join some volunteers going to Tacloban to give free food. So sabi ko, I jumped that opportunity to cover. But that was already two weeks after Yolanda. So para nung time na yun, doon ko kasi first time na feel yung smell ng patay. Kasi doon, tapos naabutan ko pa yung bundok-bundok sila. Tapos medyo siya sa akin. Personal siya sa akin kasi madami akong kamag-anak na taga doon. So, nung reason ko din bakit para sumama is maghanap ng kamag-anak. So, nung umikot kami from G1 to Tacloban para magpakain. So, nung time na yun, parang iniisip ko, what should I do? Should I take photos? Should I feed people? Should I help look for missing people? So, naisip ko, asan ba yung skills ko? Saan ako mas magagamit? So, I realized that mas magagamit ako as a photographer with my photos. And because during that time, malapit na magpasko. So, I decided, kasi nagpipitch ako sa mga different online news na I'm going to pitch Christmas story. So during those 1 week ng pag-iikot, doon mo makikita yung resiliency talaga na parang, bakit nyo nagagawa pa rin ngumiti? Magbibigay lang naman kami ng cup of lugaw, champurado, pero parang yun yung pinaka-best na makakain nyo for that day. Kasi yun talaga lang yung makakain nila for several days na. So parang yung ngiti ng lolo na nakausap ko sa giwa na parang hindi ka man nakakaintindihan kasi waray siya, pero naiiyak ako nun kasi parang yun pa lang yung pinaka-warmest meal niya. So parang sabi ko, okay, gagawin kong positive yung story. Kasi syempre, nung Yolanda, ang dami ng negative nun. Lahat, devastation ng bagyo, number ng mga patay, number ng mga nawawala. So I decided, yung hope, I try to look for a translator doon sa mga taong ni-interview ko. Nag-aabot nga lang kasi ako ng champurado. Tapos, nagpapakwento na ako sa kanila. I decided to give a story of hope para pakita yung resiliency ng mga Pilipino. Kasi yun yung first super typhoon natin. So parang dun ko din na-realize na hindi biro yung trabaho ng photographer. Hindi siya superstar, rockstar na sikat kami, lagi kami nasa frontline. This is real work, real job, na kung saan lives ng people, yung talagang natatouch at yung nakakausap mo, nakaka-apekto yung mga litratong nagagawa mo. So parang from then, ang dami ko hindi ko naman sinadya, pero napunta ako sa humanitarian side ng mga organization. So ang dami ko ng bagyong nasamahan since 2013. Yeah. So every time, kasi di ba palakas yung mga bagyo sa atin eh. Tapos parang minsan nga nakakainis kasi parang hindi natututo yung gobyerno. Bakit laging may yung number of deaths, number of losses, palala lang ng palala. So I always tell to myself na I always use my photos to tell the stories of these people na kahit alam natin, hindi, sanay na tayo sa bagyo eh. Yan na naman, every year naman ganyan eh. Pero hindi, kailangan pa rin natin i-remind na hindi tayo dapat nagsasuffer na ganito every time may bagyo.
Yeah. Pero kayo, how do you deal with that? Yung nasa gitna ka ng sakuna, you know there's suffering all around you. I don't know it's been said many times and I don't know if there's a better way to say it, but there's beauty as well as the horror all at the same time, particularly for your job, diba? Parang, and when you're in the middle of that and you're doing a job, what do you tell yourself? Or parang ikaw, you've covered not just the drug war. I presume you were there at Maguindanao.
Yeah.
You had to cover bodies of colleagues, di ba? Deaths of colleagues and maraming mga patay. You've covered wars. You've seen children in the streets, di ba? Broken down homes and so on. But what do you tell yourself at that moment?
Maganda yun sinabi ni AC, yung she wanted to capture yung hope dun sa storya ng Yolanda. At the same time, yung sa EJK naman, yung siguro despair. Pero yun by writing, you can quote a person telling you that story and you can write about it. The hope, the despair, everything. Siguro sadista kami. No? Kasi sa photography, you have to capture that to be able to tell that. Kailangan makuha mo sa picture yun. You have to show that in picture yung hope na yun na sinasabi niya. Sa text, you can write about it.
Is it always hope?
No, yun nga eh. Kung ano yung gusto mo i-capture, pwedeng despair, pwedeng hope, pwedeng, di ba, resilience. Pero yun ang challenge. Siguro, yun yung kinagustuhan namin sa adventure. Nandun ka na, nag-adventure ka na nga. When you tell the story, yung challenge is to capture that in pictures. Kasi in stories, in written word, pakwento mo yan dun sa binagyo, isusulat mo na eh. Sa photography, you have to find that frame that will tell that story. So parang yun nga, it's a challenge mo pa yung sarili mo na aside from telling the story in text, paano mo ipapakita yung pictures yun? So siguro yun yung nagsusustain kasi hindi lang naman hope nga ang stories namin, hindi lang despair, hindi lang war. But in any challenges, in any stories that they assign you,
but
the challenge is always to put that in pictures.
Pero yung sinasabi ni AC, parang the dilemma and the instinct at that moment to say, teka muna, bababa ko muna, tutulungan ko muna yung bata. How do you process something like that at the moment?
Ako kasi paano ko ba sasabihin to? I put my job first. I have to shoot first kasi otherwise I won't have a good or I won't have a photograph or hindi ako makakapagtrabaho na maayos.
When you're not playing your role.
Oo.
But is it real? Is that dilemma real?
Yes, it's super real.
I've witnessed several scenes where gusto kong tumulong or may mangyayari sa kanya. Mag-shoot ba ako o hindi, kailangan ko mag-shoot eh. Yung ganung klaseng mga eksena.
But you always have to tell yourself that your role there is to capture what's happening. Kasi nasa Menjola Massacre ako eh. Diba? They shot how many farmers. If I started helping nung nangyayari yun, and I didn't capture it in photographs, walang record nung nangyari.
Yes, exactly.
Our role kasi is to record that. Nangyari yun din kay Stephen Salcedo ba yun yung binugbog ng mga Marcos loyalists. The photographer there had the same dilemma. Do I stop them from or do I record what is happening? So eventually nagamit yung pictures na yun in prosecuting and also a record of that event happening, diba? Kasi yun yung role mo dun eh. You have to tell yourself na maraming meron namang may mga roles ang bawat tao, diba? Merong mga tao dun na pwedeng tumulong at that time. Let them help. Let them do their role. Diba? May mga medic dun. Let them do their role.
Actually, kasi yun din yung natutunan ko kasi parang alam mo kasi na hindi yun ang expertise mo, baka mas makalala ka. Mas lumala yung situation kapag bigla kang tumulong, hindi mo pala alam yung ginagawa mo. So best way is to actually do what you're really good at. Kasi alam mo yung photos mo, yun yung makakatulong sa kanila to give them more food, water, or kung ano man.
Sige.
Of course, case to case din yan. Syempre may situation na you have to really put down your camera kasi malalaglag na or something.
Watch out
malulunod
for
na.
yourself.
Diba?
Kasi, you have to know your limits then.
Like the drug war, you cannot put yourself on the line and stop what was happening. Diba?
Balikan ko yung and the two of you, kasi ikaw tatay nito. Diba? And so he was 20, a working student. First coverage mo, EJ case. Diba? I mean, I don't think, diba, despite the fact that you covered the police beat, I don't think the first pictures you took were of murders. And I don't know, would you hazard, I guess, how many dead bodies you saw over 6 years?
Hindi ko na matandaan kung ilan ba yung mga nakunan ko. Pero it was definitely one of the turning points
Pero
of my
literally
career.
hindi mo na mabilang, di ba?
Oo, marami.
Hindi, but ito yung point ko. Parang, in terms of taking care of yourself, even as a professional photojournalist, you're conscious, especially now, diba, that there is mental well-being here involved, diba? Not everybody is afforded, for that matter, the psychosocial support for the traumatic job that you do. How did you feel knowing na ang unang coverage ng anak ko is something so traumatic that even some of the most veteran photojournalists did not necessarily see this kind of carnage. And ikaw, looking at it right now, di ba, parang, kumusta ka? Na yan ang una mong sabak.
Yun nga, now you understand why I'm saying it's the worst job. As a parent, akalain mo, I wouldn't want him to endanger himself, pero at the same time, I'm also a photojournalist. I'm in the back of my mind, parang, sige, subukan mo yan para dyan ka matuto. So, imagine yung back and forth nung emotions ko noon, kung would we let him be out at night for several days in the week.
We, meaning your wife. Anong sinasabi ng nanay mo?
Well, they were very supportive naman sa ginagawa ko. And that's what drove me. Not only their support, but also the support of or yung mga nakukuha kong tulong or sa ibang sa mga ibang photographer, photojournalist. Because hindi ko rin magagawa yung trabaho ko ng maayos kung hindi dahil sa kanila. Kung hindi dahil sa mga kapwa ko, journalists, not just photojournalists.
That's also one thing that when I stopped being a journalist after AP 2009, 2010.
Kasi nag-management ka.
Oo, nag-manage talaga ako ng company. Nagtitinda ako ng computer. Pero nung nakita kong, yun yung na-miss ko, yung camaraderie ng community, ng photographers. Nung nakikita ko yun, I went back to journalism
They
right
pull you
away.
back in.
Oo, kasi yun yung nami-miss ko. Diba? Pwede ko safe, nasa behind the desk, kumikita ka, nagtitinda ng computer. Pero, ang nami-miss ko actually yun sabi mo rin kanina, nakikipagkwento ka kay Bernard. Kasi nga, nag-a-adventure ka na and you're capturing history at the same time. Binabayaran ka naman ng decent wage. Diba? So, it's the best job.
Recently, kausap ko si...
It's the worst and best job.
Recently, kausap ko, one of our old friends and colleagues, si Veronica Uy. And nag-uusap nga kami. Sabi na, in this day and age of social media, di ba? In your generation, di ba? We've actually lost the value of immediacy and speed, di ba? So sabi ko, ano yung natitirang value ng journalist na, yan, parang this is something that journalists provide that nobody else can provide. And I said, I think I would say access. Di ba? Na parang, anybody can take a picture of an earthquake or a building that crumbles. But it's the journalist who will find access to take a picture of a hand in the rubble. Diba? Or toys in the aftermath of or sabi mo nga, even talking to them, having access. And then Onyx said, I think related dyan yung word ko. But my word is to witness. Diba? Parang that remains the realm of others can help to document, diba? Sa Twitter lang, mag-search ka lang sa Twitter. Ang dami ng pictures ng earthquake. Diba? But to witness for the suffering, the hope, the despair, whatever.
I was gonna say, I beg to disagree dun sa access kasi everybody has access. Everybody has phones. Everybody can take the Yolanda.
Yes, but not
but you differentiated nga.
Yeah.
Being a witness is not just being there, not just having access. Being a witness, again, we go back to the basics of photography, of the storytelling.
Oh, but what
you have to tell it.
Oh,
Yes. Diba? You have to tell the story.
But
Yun
what
nga,
I
sinabi
mean
mo,
by
to capture
access-
the kamay, the detail, that's telling a story through images.
Yeah.
Kung access lang yun, kunan mo lang yung nangyari.
yeah, but that's what I mean by access. What I actually mean by access is getting as close as possible. Diba?
But what differentiates it is your role as a witness. Yung witness na ilalabas mo na picture.
Kasi ang
Kasi
netizen,
kung access
may
lang yun,
nasusunod na
let's take a
kotse.
picture. Exactly. Take a
Diba?
picture na nasusunod.
Anybody can take a picture and happy na yung
But
netizen,
a witness
diba?
dapat, mas mabigat na may nuance yung witness na mas mabigat Kasi you're telling, di ba, yung story through your eyes. Witness ka nga.
Yeah.
And this through photograph.
Ikaw AC, you're deliberately in an advocacy role, di ba? Other than, deaths and drugs, you work for sustainable cities, climate change. What are some stories and some pictures that you've made na for you this is witnessing? I mean, this is chronicling, and it's witnessing in the sense na alam ko this has a role to play.
Siguro yung pag sa advocacy sa development work ka kasi as a photographer, usually parang iniisip mo lang, nandito ka lang para to cover events. But no, you're there to actually tell a story. Yun yung kapag kunwari, pag nag-a-apply ako ng trabaho dati, laging yun ang sinasabi ko, yung edge ko na, you can look for any photographers, but you cannot look for any photographers that can tell a story. So, yung laging challenge, lalo na kunwari sa issue ng climate change, mahirap kasing i-visualize yung sea level rise. Pag sinabi mo sea level rise, laging iisipin, laging ihingin sa akin ng editor kapag nagpapasa ako, wala bang baha? Wala. Hindi kasi baha, yung sea level rise, magkaiba yun. So parang, in any normal day, there's sea level rise. So parang, how will you capture
How will you illustrate
those
it?
things, diba? So parang sa akin, it's a matter of observing and research. So lagi ko sinasabi sa mga estudyante ko na, okay, lagi tayo nasa frontline, pero hindi ibig sabihin niya na yun lang yung trabaho natin. Para sa akin nga, 75% ng trabaho ng isang photographer is research. How will you tell it in a way na tama, na hindi yung speculation na yun nga, sea level rise equals baha. So, yung isang memorable sa akin story na nagawa ko sa ICSC is that we document a group of women in Suluan Island. It's the eastern island in Giwan. So, pag tinignan mo siya sa mapa, siya yung tuldok sa likod ng Pilipinas. So, parang we've been documenting the community since 2017. So parang may grupo ng mga kababaihan doon na gustong-gusto nilang magkaroon ng kuryente yung kanilang isla. Kasi even before Yolanda, wala silang kuryente. So ang ginawa namin, we train them to tap renewable energy. Mag-DIY solar, ganyan. So akala namin from that, okay na. Pero sila mismo on their own, nagde-develop sila ng kanilang ways kung paano mag-tap ng renewable energy. So, ang ginagawa ko nun, every year, bumabalik kami. Every year, ino-observe ko, nagpapakwenta ko doon sa mga nanay, ano yung ginagawa nila. So, para sa akin, yun yung every year na bumabalik, mas hindi na paglilitrato yung ginagawa ko mas pakikipagkwentuhan na sa kanila. Tapos yung connection na yun, yung story na nabuo ko for that, is actually helpful kasi ginagamit siya ng organization through lobbying work. Na nakikita na itong mga kababaihan nito, wala silang access, but they're looking for ways to access renewable energy. So, I think yung mga ganong klaseng stories, yun yung importanteng malaman ng iba. Kasi parang sinasabi ko din dati sa mga students ko na kung gusto mo maging photographer, hindi lang media yung way to do that. If you want to be a visual storyteller, there are different channels, different pathways. Ang importanteng dapat matutunan nyo lagi is how you tell a story through photos. So, yun.
Certainly, it's not just your one-off image sa Instagram.
Oo nga. But whether it's Instagram, di ba, for whatever it's worth, whether it goes viral or it's on the front page or the cover of a magazine, what makes a powerful image?
Yun nga yung notion kasi na access lang and you were there to take a picture, pareho rin naman ang kuha ng isang professional photographer or professional photojournalist. No, it's not. Kasi you put in a lot into the frame. In fact, the ones you put into the frame, the ones you don't include in the frame, there's certain aesthetics and a process of mind. Pati nga yung research before even taking that picture, that goes into all the photographs
And
that
it's
you're
not,
taking.
it's not, I think, as some people watching might say, that it's a technical term, but it's also not captured by the word composition. It's not just composition.
That's just one of them.
Just one of them.
One of the,
So what else goes into a powerful image? I mean, whether it's your work or something na nakita mo na hindi mo man lang kilala yung nag-post, pero nakita mo naman, ito to
It depends on how you want it depends on how you want to
No, how you're affected. Not how you're what do you, whether you're an editor, you're a photo editor, or you're just somebody na tinamaan ng somebody else's picture. Like I said, hindi mo man lang kilala kung sino. What is there any way to distill of
Actually,
what makes a powerful
it's probably
picture?
the same for the viewer as well as the photographer. Pag nag-impact sa yung picture, alam mo kasi nasabi niya yung storya. It can be like, di ba, Heidelin Diaz, di ba, shedding the moment that she lifted yung
barbell.
piece of metal, pero yung makikita mo na maluha-luha siya and you capture that, iba yung storya na sinasabi nun, di ba? So, you feel that. The viewers can feel that. The photographer can feel that.
Mo kapag nakita mo dun sa camera
mo.
Alam mo yun.
Well, noon sa film, hindi mo pa makikita. Kasi yun yung ano nun, there was
and
pero
in one frame. Kasi napanood din natin sa video yun eh. Ginanon niya, di ba? Nangyari, umiyak siya. But if you can capture in one frame that emotion, that feeling, lahat ng feeling ni Heidelin, first gold, all the hardships, all through the years, na-capture mo doon sa mukha niya.
Hindi, I think that's a good point kay Heidelin. Because I remember one image. And this was not taken by a professional
photographer.
Yung picture niya na may medal tapos puro kalyo yung
yung
kamay.
Nakita ko yun.
That
Saw
was
that on Twitter.
That was Paolo De Rosario. If I remember it, and Paolo just happens to be one of our young anchors covering the And I remember that story, parang sinasabi niya, parang post mo. Di ba? And these were also fellow amateurs telling him, i-post mo dahil, di ba? But yun yung point.
Na-feel kasi ng mga tao.
Diba?
Exactly.
Di ba?
Na-feel ng mga captured yung story.
But that's also a story of access. Di ba? He's the anchor. He can be that close to Heidelin. Di ba? He can tell. In fact, he can tell Heidelin, pwede ba hawakan mo? Ilabas mo dyan, di ba? But that's, di ba? At that moment, it's a photo. It's a photojournalistic work. Di ba? It's journalism. It's a story. It's everything. Pero yun yung when it hits you so viscerally, is there a way to define it? You train journalists.
I guess it also goes the same sa mga kung nagsusulat ka, 'di ba? Kung naramdaman mo na exact maayos, ay ang ganda ng sulat ko.
Siguro siya something
with other
na hindi mo na kailangan basahin yung caption, you just understand it immediately kung ano yung nangyayari. Kasi 'di ba sinasabi nila na yung photography transcends all languages. So once you have that feeling, yun nga, mahirap siyang express in one word. Walang one word to describe that.
There are different components talaga.
Madaming components to say it's powerful. Can be person na naiyak dahil nakita, o person na nagalit kasi nakita yung picture na yun. So it has a different way. Basta as long as nakapagparamdam ka ng something, I think it's powerful enough.
It's always a push and pull from between form and content.
Yeah.
Yung kay Paul Strand, lagi kong binabalik. That's my main motto in life. Yung parang, we first have to master the basics of how to tell a story. Because if you have a content, first you have a content, but if you don't know how to deliver it, pwede rin alam mo how to deliver, but you don't have the content. So it has to be both.
Once nandun ka na sa field, it's obviously, and once you're telling stories about, let's say, about indigenous people, or climate change, or disasters, or EJKs, it's obviously that's no longer about technology. It brings you back to yung point mo. It's the same rules. You have to know what your role is,
what you're doing there, what the story is all about.
Anong silbi mo doon?
And how are you gonna bring it back in the form of a picture, in a single picture or a photo essay, diba? Same challenges. So technology doesn't help there.
Tsaka
Kasi
yung connection
telling the story yung sinasolve mo .
Is there a picture that for you, alam ko you hate this question of what's your favorite picture. That's not my, but is there a photo that for you, whether it was published or not, that for you is I guess it goes back to my first question, is emblematic of, this is a picture that tells me, whether any other people see this, that tells me that this is why I became a photojournalist in all your years of coverage.
Wala nakasagot,
Mahirap yung one lang. Hello? Siguro ika-cluster ko siya into team para safe. Yes, madami pa din. For me, siguro yung mga women-led initiatives. Kasi iba yung kapag yung mga kababaihan yung kumikilos para sa komunidad nila. Kasi iba yung napoproduce ni story na parang yung mga simpleng, nag-DIY sila ng solar, napagana nila yung DIY nila. Yung moment ng aha moment na, may ilaw na kami sa bahay. Para sa atin normal yun pero sa kanila iba yun. Tapos iba yung parang may chills sa'yo na, oh my God, for these people, this is really important.
Yeah.
So for me, sa akin, yung mga ganun ng initiative, yung mga inisyatibo ng komunidad, especially pag women-led, kasi feeling ko kapag mga kababaihan yung mga namumuno, hindi fast, action agad. Kahit na may pera o wala sila, basta ang kanila, ay kailangan natin to. Kailangan natin magkailaw para makapag-aral yung mga anak ko. So sa akin, yun. Pero yun, hindi ako makapag-define ng isang frame lang. Kaya team ko siya ginawa.
Nag-stick kasi sa atin yung you're only as good as your last photograph. Parang, totoo naman, every day or every coverage or event that you go
You have to outdo yourself.
there's always a better or a good photograph compared to the last photo you took. So, and every day there's an issue. Lalo na sa Pilipinas, it's talagang ang daming issue. You have religious issues, political. Ang dami mong pwedeng punta. Kaya nga, ang dami pumupuntang journalist dito sa training ground, di ba? Na kung gusto mong, terrorism, religion, nandyan, lahat nandyan.
Ako,
Di ba, hirap
ang
sagutin?
hirap. It can be the EJK, it can be Yolanda, or even as far back as yung Caravan, Menjola Massacre. Pero siguro, something profound na picture that really told me there's something in photographs. Siguro yung nag-start pa lang ako, Collegian. We were in an outing, hindi pa coverage, outing ng Collegian sa Banawe. Papunta kami sa Gada, so dumaan ka ng Banawe. And I took a picture of children playing. Tapos nung pagbalik namin sa Manila, nakita nung ibang, publish natin siya as sa cultural page ng Collegian. Tapos gawin nating section, poetry and photo. So it meant that that particular photograph was like a poem na pwede ka palang mag-express ng something like a poem na mag-express ka ng emotion and a story all in one frame. So parang, pwede palang photography. So it's not a big event. But that changed my perspective sa photography, di ba? Pwede rin akong tumula. Pwede rin akong featurize. Pwede rin akong mag-news pala later on with just a photograph. So language talaga sa akin ng photography. And that's always been my vocation sa whether I start with business world barely had photographs.
Yes.
It was a great page.
Yes.
Pero by the time before I left, di ba, I was publishing a photo spread na ang mahal-mahal ng page ng Business World. But I was publishing a spread na photo essay to convince Raul Locsin to publish 2 pages of photographs. Di ba? So that has always been my vocation. Whether it's Business World, AP, ABS-CBN, it's the power of the photographs. Lagi ko pinupush yan. It's been a lifelong vocation.
AC De Matatak, Jun Sepe, Basilio, Eli Sepe. Maraming salamat. And you can catch us again next Thursday, 9:30 p.m. on One News. You can also check out the long conversation on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Ako po si Roby Alampay. This is Roundtable.